The klaxons shrieked like wounded metal beasts, their echoes bouncing off the crystalline corridors of Sunspire Academy. Red warning lights painted the walls in violent pulses, splashing across carved banners that displayed the emblems of a dozen alien civilizations. Kaelen Veyr sprinted down the hall, boots slamming against glassy floor panels that vibrated with distant detonations. His lungs burned, but he didn't slow. Explosions this precise were no accident. Someone wanted the academy broken, and humanity framed. He rounded a corner and slammed into a sealed bulkhead. The pressure locks refused to budge. Behind the wall, muffled booms rattled the floor beneath his feet. Kaelen's fist pounded the control panel to no effect. "Damn it!" he muttered. A hiss of smoke curled down the opposite hallway. From it stepped Serath Vhorr. The Zeylani cadet looked carved from translucent crystal, his skin shimmering with faint internal light. Blood glimmered in sharp streaks across his forearm, refracting like liquid glass. His gaze fixed on Kaelen with that same cold disdain he wore in every training session. "Of course," Serath said, his voice edged with scorn. "The human runs toward chaos. Do your people ever survive without starting fires?" Kaelen bristled, every muscle ready for a fight. "Funny! I thought Zeylani liked watching others burn from a safe distance." The insult landed. Serath's jaw flexed, but he didn't rise to it. Instead, his gaze shifted to the sealed bulkhead. Another controlled detonation thundered beyond it, closer this time. "This wasn't an accident," Serath said flatly. "Glad you noticed," Kaelen shot back. Another alarm blared, different this time, sharper, urgent. The Academy's voice AI chimed overhead. "Containment breach in Sector 12. All cadets evacuate immediately." Kaelen and Serath exchanged a glance. Neither moved. Evacuating meant abandoning the others trapped behind that bulkhead. That wasn't an option, not for Kaelen. He planted his feet and shoved his shoulder against the bulkhead, gritting his teeth. The panel groaned but held firm. Serath's crystalline hand rested briefly on the wall, light rippling across the veins beneath his skin as he analyzed it. "Reinforced alloy. You'll dislocate your bones before it yields. Then help," Kaelen snapped. For a moment Serath stood still, caught between contempt and pragmatism. Then the ceiling above them cracked with a sound like splitting ice. Dust and shards rained down. The corridor trembled, threatening to collapse entirely. With a hiss of irritation, Serath pressed his palm against the lock, channeling energy through his crystalline form. The mechanism sparked, then melted with a shriek. Together, he and Kaelen shoved the bulkhead open just enough to slip inside. The chamber beyond looked like a war zone. Smoke obscured half the room, shattered training drones sparking in heaps. Alien cadets stumbled through the haze, some carrying others, some screaming into comms. And at the far end, crouched figures planted small cylindrical devices along the walls. Their armor shimmered with cloaking distortions, but Kaelen's eyes caught the outlines. "Saboteurs. Those aren't cadets," Kaelen said under his breath. Serath's crystalline eyes narrowed. "Mercenaries. Professional." The saboteurs turned as if on cue. One tossed a charge toward the bulkhead. "Move!" Kaelen shoved Serath aside. The blast tore across the floor where they'd stood, flinging molten shards into the wall. Kaelen rolled, came up in a crouch, and yanked the compact baton from his belt. The weapon flared to life with crackling arcs of blue energy. Serath drew no weapon, his body itself was weapon enough. Jagged crystalline edges formed along his arms as he advanced. The saboteurs opened fire with silent plasma rifles. Bolts scorched the walls, filling the room with ozone. Kaelen darted forward in sharp, low bursts. Humans weren't the fastest, but they were stubborn enough to close distance. He slammed his baton against a rifle, sending its shot wild before striking the wielder across the jaw. Beside him, Serath spun with deadly grace, crystalline blades slicing through armor with sparks. For a moment, rivalry meant nothing. Survival demanded synchronization. "To left!" Kaelen shouted, deflecting a shot with his baton. Serath answered with a slash that dropped one saboteur. The last retreated, tapping a device on his wrist. A holographic projection flickered briefly, schematics of the Academy's central core, before the figure vanished into a cloaking field. Kaelen cursed. "They're targeting the eye systems." Serath retrieved a fragment of the device left behind, light refracting through it like glass through water. His face tightened. This wasn't random sabotage. They're trying to dismantle the Academy from within. Kaelen wiped sweat and soot from his brow. His instincts screamed louder than the klaxons. Whoever these saboteurs worked for, they had planned this meticulously. And if humans were blamed, every world represented at Sunspire would use it as proof of humanity's recklessness. "Serath," Kaelen said, breathing hard. "We can't split. Not if they're cloaked and moving fast. We'll get picked off." Serath gave him a sharp look. "You expect me to fight beside you? A human?" Kaelen's jaw tightened. "I don't care what you think of me. But if this Academy falls, either of us walks away with a future. So pick, pride, or survival." For several heartbeats, the only sound was the hiss of sparking wires. Then Serath extended one crystalline blade toward the corridor ahead. "Fine. But understand this, if you falter, I will not die for you." Kaelen grinned despite the smoke and blood. "Good news. I don't plan on dying for you either." Another blast rocked the Academy, shaking the floor beneath them. Dust cascaded from the ceiling, and the walls groaned. Somewhere deeper, the mercenaries were moving toward their real target. Kaelen and Serath exchanged one last, wary look. Enemies yesterday. Unwilling allies today. The Academy's survival, perhaps humanity's future, depended on how long that fragile alliance could hold. The Academy's corridors looked nothing like the gleaming halls Kaelen had known. Smoke clung to the ceiling like a living shadow, dimming the bioluminescent strips embedded in the glassy walls. Shards of shattered drones littered the ground, sparks leaping from their broken cores. Kaelen adjusted his grip on the baton, its faint crackle the only steady sound amid distant alarms. His pulse hadn't slowed since the firefight. Every instinct told him to keep moving, because whoever planted those charges wasn't finished. Serath walked ahead with unhurried precision, crystalline form reflecting the crimson emergency glow. He didn't even glance back when he spoke. "You're loud," Serath said. "Even when you're trying to be quiet." Kaelen scowled. "And you're welcome for saving your life back there." "I saved myself," Serath replied. "You merely distracted them." Kaelen bit back a retort. Now wasn't the time. His father's voice echoed in his mind, "Survive the insult if survival keeps you alive." He forced his focus back on the mission. They reached a collapsed section of hallway where ceiling panels had caved in, creating jagged obstacles. Kaelen scrambled over the debris with practiced ease, but Serath paused, pressing a glowing palm against the fractured wall. Light pulsed faintly within him. "There were 6 saboteurs," Serath murmured. "We eliminated 3. 2 retreated. 1 vanished completely. Their path leads toward the core. Then we stop them before they blow the brain out of this place," Kaelen said, brushing dust from his uniform. A hiss echoed ahead. Shadows shifted. From the smoke, 3 cadets stumbled into view, 2 Avari with feathered frills trembling, and a Garun dragging an injured leg. Their eyes widened at the sight of Kaelen. "It's him!" one of the Avari shrieked, feathers puffing in alarm. "The human brought them here!" Kaelen froze. "What?" "No, I was fighting them." But panic already spread. The cadets raised their defensive staves, sparks charging at the tips. Serath moved forward in a blur, crystalline blade raised. His voice rang like steel against stone. "Stand down. He is with me." The room went silent. The Avari exchanged uneasy glances. Few dared to question a Zeylani cadet, especially Serath Vhorr, heir to a lineage of war strategists. Reluctantly, they lowered their weapons. Kaelen shot him a sideways glance. "Didn't think you'd stick your neck out." "Do not misunderstand," Serath said, stepping past him. "If you fall, I do not intend to explain to your council why I allowed humanity's representative to die under my watch. Politics bores me." Could have just said thanks, Kaelen muttered. They pressed on. As they moved deeper, the Academy's hum dimmed. Kaelen knew that sound, the AI's stabilizers shifting. If the saboteurs corrupted the Academy's systems, the orbital station could collapse into the gas giant below. Why frame humans? Kaelen asked as they navigated through a half-lit junction. You saw the way those cadets looked at me. This'll spread fast. Because you are the most convenient scapegoat, Serath answered without hesitation. Your species terrifies them. Too adaptive, too reckless. The saboteurs need only nudge fear into panic, and every world will demand humans be expelled. Kaelen swallowed hard. He hated how logical it sounded. They reached the AI chamber's outer corridor, and stopped dead. 2 saboteurs were kneeling at the base of the reinforced door, their cloaking fields flickering as they planted charges. Kaelen crouched low. If they breach that, the Academy falls? Serath finished. His crystalline eyes glowed faintly. We strike together. Kaelen smirked despite himself. Thought you didn't fight beside humans. I don't, Serath said coldly. I fight beside necessity. The saboteurs turned as Serath's glow gave them away. One raised a rifle. Kaelen lunged before the shot fired, baton sparking across armor. The saboteur staggered back, shield flickering. Serath darted forward, a blur of refracted light, crystalline blade tearing into the other's detonator. Sparks erupted. The saboteurs didn't panic, they coordinated, falling back toward the chamber's side entrance. One activated a drone swarm from a wrist console. Tiny metallic spheres spilled into the air, glowing with red optics. They swirled like a school of predators. Kaelen cursed. Of course they've got toys. The swarm dived. Kaelen swung his baton in wide arcs, crackling energy knocking several drones out of the air, but there were too many. One sliced across his arm, searing fabric and skin. He bit down a cry. Serath extended both arms. Crystalline shards burst from his body, whirling outward like knives. The swarm shredded under the sudden storm of light and steel. Kaelen blinked. That's new. Serath ignored him, stepping over the sparking wreckage. Focus. The saboteurs were already fleeing down a maintenance shaft. Kaelen pushed himself upright. We can't let them reach the core. No, Serath said. But if we chase blind, we'll die. Kaelen hesitated, torn. Every second they wasted, the saboteurs gained ground. But Serath was right. Charging headlong without a plan would be suicide. Kaelen exhaled, grounding himself. Then we do it smart. I'll track their energy trail. You cut their escape path. Serath gave him a long, calculating look, as though weighing whether a human's idea could be worth hearing. At last, he nodded. Agreed. For the first time since the alarms began, Kaelen felt something almost foreign in Serath's tone. Not disdain. Not scorn. Respect, barely visible, but there. The maintenance shaft was a tunnel of shadows, its walls lined with exposed conduits that hummed faintly with unstable power. Every step Kaelen and Serath took echoed against the metal, a reminder that their quarry wasn't far ahead. Kaelen's grip on his baton tightened. The energy trail glowed faintly across the floor, residual heat from the saboteurs' cloaking fields. He crouched, running 2 fingers along the mark. Still warm. They're close. Serath's crystalline skin pulsed with faint light, his sharp features unreadable. Close enough to ambush us. Kaelen almost grinned. Then let's not disappoint them. They pressed forward. The shaft widened into a chamber filled with discarded drones and half-functioning repair bots. Shadows shifted above. Kaelen's instincts screamed. Down! He shouted, diving aside. Blinding plasma fire ripped through the chamber. The saboteurs had been waiting. 4 emerged from the dark, rifles raised, visors glowing crimson. Kaelen rolled, baton snapping to life in his hands. He met the first saboteur head-on, striking low then high. Sparks flew as armor dented under the impact. Serath didn't hesitate. His arms sharpened into crystalline blades, light shimmering along the edges. He cut through plasma fire with deflecting arcs, closing distance in a blur. One slash disarmed a rifle, the next pierced armor. But their enemies fought with precision. One saboteur lobbed a pulse grenade. Kaelen saw the glow too late. The blast hurled him backward, slamming his body into a wall of broken drones. His baton skittered across the floor. His ears rang. A figure loomed over him, rifle aimed. Kaelen's heart hammered. Then Serath's blade flashed, cleaving the rifle in two. The saboteur reeled back, crystalline shards embedded in his armor. Serath's voice was sharp as glass. "Get up, human!" Kaelen grabbed his baton and rose. "You could have just said thanks." "No time." The fight pressed harder. Plasma bolts scorched the walls, filling the air with acrid smoke. Kaelen and Serath moved like reluctant gears in the same machine, awkward at first, but gradually aligning. Kaelen ducked beneath a rifle swing, ramming his baton into the saboteur's chest. "One down!" "Two," Serath corrected as his crystalline blade cut through another. The remaining pair regrouped, activating wrist projectors. Holographic decoys split across the chamber, filling the room with dozens of false targets. Kaelen cursed. "Great! They brought a party!" Serath closed his eyes, crystalline veins glowing brighter. His kind could sense vibrations through the air. Left side. The pulse of a real heart. Kaelen didn't question it. He lunged left, swinging hard. His baton struck real armor, sending the saboteur sprawling. The decoys flickered and collapsed. The last enemy fired wildly, desperate. Kaelen dodged the shots, then stumbled on debris. The rifle locked on him. Serath moved without hesitation, stepping into the line of fire. Plasma bolts slammed into his crystalline torso, shattering fragments from his frame. He staggered, but held his ground long enough for Kaelen to close the gap and disarm the shooter with a brutal strike. The chamber fell silent. Smoke curled from the saboteur's broken weapon. The fight was over. Kaelen turned, chest heaving. You took the hit for me." Serath's form flickered faintly with cracks of light. His face was unreadable, but his voice was softer than Kaelen had ever heard. "A tactical decision. Losing you meant losing our chance of stopping them. That is all." Kaelen stared at him, disbelief mingling with something else, something heavier. For the first time, Serath's arrogance looked less like pride and more like armor he was trying to keep intact. But there was no time to unpack it. The last saboteur, pinned against the wall, spat blood and laughter. "You don't even know, we've already won." Kaelen yanked him up by the collar. "Talk." The mercenary grinned through broken teeth. "The Academy will burn, and humanity will be the spark." Serath's eyes narrowed. "They mean to frame your species entirely." Kaelen shoved the saboteur aside, frustration boiling. "If they succeed, no human gets trained here again. We'll be locked out of the galaxy's future." The saboteur coughed, voice breaking. "You're too late. The core is already primed. Soon every cadet will see your kind for what you are, dangerous animals." His visor flickered, then went dark. A kill switch. They weren't getting more answers. Kaelen paced, fists clenched. "They want humanity gone. They'll turn every death into proof we're monsters." Serath studied him quietly. Finally, he said, "You fought well. Reckless, but precise where it mattered." Kaelen blinked, caught off guard. "Was that a compliment?" "Do not mistake observation for praise," Serath said, though the faintest smirk tugged at his crystalline lips. Despite the smoke, despite the wounds, Kaelen felt a weight shift. Serath had shielded him. Serath had admitted he mattered. It wasn't trust yet, but it was no longer pure hatred either. Kaelen stooped, picking up the cracked wrist projector. "If the core's primed, we don't have much time. Either we stop them together, or this place goes down." Serath straightened, crystalline shards reforming along his arms. "Then we finish it. And if humanity survives this day, perhaps it will be because, for once, a human chose not to fight alone." For the first time, Kaelen didn't argue. He simply nodded. The path ahead was set. Together, they marched toward the Academy's heart, where the final confrontation awaited. The Academy's central core loomed like a cathedral of glass and light. Towering conduits pulsed with energy, feeding the AI nexus that governed Sunspire's orbit. Normally the chamber thrummed with stability, a reassuring heartbeat. Now it felt wrong, each pulse staggered, unstable, as though the station itself struggled to breathe. Kaelen and Serath approached the massive doors. Faint tremors rolled beneath their feet. "They've set charges here," Serath said, his crystalline veins glowing brighter. "If the core fails, the Academy won't just collapse, it'll spiral into the gas giant." Kaelen's jaw tightened. "Then we stop them before anyone writes humanity's obituary." The doors shuddered open. Inside, 5 saboteurs worked feverishly around the nexus, attaching pulsing charges to glowing conduits. At their center stood a tall figure draped in adaptive armor, helm flickering with a predator's grin. The leader. He turned as Kaelen and Serath entered. "Ah. The deathworlder and the Crystal Prince. Curious allies." His voice echoed through the chamber like smoke. Kaelen raised his baton. "You're not walking out of here." The leader chuckled. "Oh, I won't need to. When this place burns, every cadet will believe it was humanity's recklessness that doomed them. The fear is already planted. You're too late." Serath stepped forward, crystalline blades shimmering. "We'll see." The saboteurs moved as one. Rifles ignited. Plasma fire lanced across the chamber. Kaelen darted left, baton sparking as he deflected shots. He lunged, striking low then high, dropping one saboteur with a surge of blue arcs. Serath advanced through the fire like a storm made solid, shards bursting from his body to deflect plasma. His blades sliced through another, leaving fragments of broken armor in his wake. The leader joined the fray, moving faster than expected, striking Kaelen with a force that sent him sprawling. His baton skidded across the floor. "Fragile," the leader sneered. "Typical human." Kaelen spat blood, forcing himself upright. His ribs screamed, but he pushed through. "Fragile doesn't mean broken." Serath engaged the leader, crystalline blades sparking against adaptive armor. The clash rang through the chamber like steel on glass. The leader parried, countered, drove Serath back step by step. Kaelen retrieved his baton and rejoined the fight. He struck from the flank, his movements unrefined compared to Serath's elegance, but relentless. For a moment, they fought in tandem. Serath's precision opened gaps. Kaelen's stubborn strikes exploited them. The leader staggered, armor flickering. "Impossible," he hissed. "You shouldn't even stand side by side." Kaelen smirked through blood. "Guess you underestimated humanity's bad habit of not quitting." The leader roared and activated the charges. Red lights pulsed across the conduits. The core groaned, power surging wildly. Kaelen's heart dropped. "He's primed it!" Serath lunged, driving both crystalline blades deep into the leader's armor. Sparks and shards exploded outward. The mercenary screamed, collapsing as the armor shorted. But the charges still blinked. Kaelen sprinted toward the closest, baton crackling. He slammed it against the device, overloading its circuitry. Sparks flew. One down. Serath tore another from the conduit, crystalline veins glowing as he absorbed its unstable energy, his body fracturing under the strain. "Serath!" Kaelen shouted. "I can contain it," Serath growled, voice sharp with pain. "Disarm the rest." Kaelen moved, fast and desperate, tearing through the chamber. He disabled a third, then a fourth. Sweat drenched his brow, every muscle screaming. The last charge blinked faster, seconds from detonation. He dove, jammed the baton into its core, and let the energy rip through him. Agony seared his arm, but the charge sputtered and died. Silence fell, broken only by the labored hum of stabilizing conduits. Kaelen collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. The air reeked of ozone and scorched circuits. Serath stood across the chamber, crystalline skin fractured, glowing cracks spiderwebbing his frame. Yet he still stood. His eyes met Kaelen's. For once, no scorn lingered there. Only acknowledgement. You risked everything, Serath said quietly. Kaelen forced a grin, even through the pain. Kind of a human thing. Footsteps echoed. Cadets poured into the chamber, Avari, Garun, Orlik, dozens of species. They froze at the sight, Kaelen and Serath side by side, surrounded by disabled saboteurs and disarmed charges. Whispers spread like wildfire. Serath raised his fractured blade and spoke loud enough for all to hear. The saboteurs sought to frame humanity. Without Kaelen Veyr, this academy would lie in ruin. Remember that. The crowd stirred, disbelief colliding with respect. Kaelen blinked, stunned. Serath had just publicly defended him. Not grudgingly. Not politically. Honestly. The Academy's AI voice filled the chamber at last. Containment stabilized. Threat neutralized. Cadets, stand down. Kaelen let himself breathe. For the first time since the alarms began, hope flickered. Serath approached, his fractured body casting shifting light. Do not mistake this alliance for friendship, he said, voice still sharp. Then softer. But neither should you forget it. Kaelen smirked. Wouldn't dream of it. As medics rushed in and cadets whispered of the battle, Kaelen realized something had shifted far beyond a single fight. The human and the Zeylani had fought as one. The Academy had seen it. And the galaxy would hear of it. The alliance no one expected had been forged in fire. And nothing would ever be the same again.